Thanks for joining us here on Warrior Talk, the Garth Estadt Veteran Show. I'm John Mendola here on the John Mendola Show Network. And hey, we're here to talk about veterans. We're going to talk a lot about veterans here with Warrior Talk with Garth Estadt. And we're really looking forward to this adventure that Garth Estadt and myself are going to give you on a regular basis. And Garth, we're not only going to talk about veterans in northeastern Pennsylvania or Pennsylvania, we're going to talk about them in the United States, in North America, and from across the world. Thanks to you and the connections that you have. And we're going to seek out veterans that want to tell a little bit about their story. And everybody has interesting stories. Nobody better than I know that has more interesting stories than you, but I'm sure you know people that have some really cool stories, how they got involved in the armed forces. And we're not just going to hit one area of the armed forces. We're going to try to hit many branches of the armed forces, Garth. Pleasure and a great opportunity here, Garth, to welcome you in and kick off the Warrior Talk.
Thank you, John. Hey, I really appreciate it. You approached me. I look back, it's probably about a month from now, and asked me if I wanted to sit there and produce a veteran show. I sat and I thought about it. I know so many different interesting people. I even had a Medal of Honor winner who was one of my insureds, Mr. Gino Murley, World War II. He has subsequently passed away, but I have access to, and we're going to try. I will try to get some of these men on here, and we'll see what we can do. I have Korean War vets. I have Vietnam vets. They're just local. I know Vietnam vets, from all over the country also. And, and actually contemporary warriors too. We probably will not be able to get any active duty guys on just because they'll probably have to get DOD clearance for that. But we're going to have men, we're going to have males, females, and from the whole spectrum, starting from the Korean War and working our way up. Not the episodes don't have to be chronological. But we will have people from a bunch of different wars. They're veterans, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, John.
Obviously, you being a veteran yourself, and knowing what veterans are going through, there's many challenges that veterans are going through on a daily basis. I think it's all of us to be a little bit more mindful of that. And I know you're a guy who's always mindful of veterans, but regular folk, people that maybe haven't been in the armed services, to just give a little bit more understanding of them and a little bit more thought to them, and do anything we can that is positive to hear people's stories and to share some of the interesting places that people have been to, and of course the networking people they've met. There really are some great stories out there that we're going to be fortunate enough to share with everybody.
Yeah, John, and I just think this is just a little bit that you and I can do for our fellow vets too. This is awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. I will, like I said, I will try to start out with some of my teammates and different people like that, and classmates, and we'll work our way around. We'll have locals, and we'll have guys from all over the world and all over the country that are veterans. What I think we were going to plan on doing is this first episode. We were just going to focus on, I was just going to tell you a little bit about my background. What me and my girls came up with, though, is if I do something for myself, it sometimes works. If I do something for someone else, it always works. So, but just for the first episode, I'm just giving you a little bit about my background, just so you can understand where we come from. And
there's a lot to share with who you are and what you're about. And I know a little bit about your story, and the stories that you have are awesome. But hey, let's get you started here and just tell us a little bit about Garth Estadt as a young man growing up, what life was like, and take us through. You're a storyteller. You do a great job with it. So take it away.
All right, John. Here, what we're going to do, though, is we're going to be at a lot higher level. I'm not going to get into details of some of the ops and stuff like that, just because we could use this half-hour show just talking about some of the ops that I've been fortunate enough to be involved in. But I grew up in a small town about 15, 20 miles outside Philly called Fallsington. And when I was in elementary school, I saw the movie The Green Berets, and I said, you know what? I said, that's what I want to do. I want to be a Green Beret. So my dad bought me the book, The Green Berets. I read it, and we had a friend of ours that also that went to West Point, and I was in probably 7th, 8th grade, and I said to myself, I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to West Point, and I'm going to be a Green Beret. Now, I really had no idea how I was going to get there. My family does, my father served in the military 61 to 63. He was drafted, but it wasn't like I'm from a military family. I'm the first college graduate from my family. In high school, I was, I was recruited by the Army football coach because that's where I wanted to go, was West Point. Had real high SATs. I was recruited by the other Ivy Leagues. But I had really bad grades. I was a C student. My family didn't go to college. I didn't know. I just said, hey, I'm a good football player. I have good SATs. I'm being recruited by Army. The West Point football coach offered me the prep school. And I told him, I said, no. I said, I don't need that prep school. I said, I'm going to be fine. I'm a good football player. I'm going to get in. He said, Garth, you're a C student. You're not going to get into West Point. And when I didn't get the nomination, I went back to him. I said, yeah, I'll take that prep school thing. He said, Garth, he said, we already gave those slots up. So I ended up going to Perkiomen Prep School in Pennsylvania. I played football for him. I wrestled and also played baseball for him. And that was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. You got to remember, I was a solid C student, never took a report card home my whole life. And there was a boarding school. And because I was so far behind some of the other students academically, they would sit me in the back of the room, and the math teacher and the physics teacher and my different professors would work with me until I caught up to them. And so I got all A's and B's at Perkiomen. And the football coach called me and told me, says, hey, Garth, you got the nomination, you're in. He goes, but when the congressman calls you today, he said, just act surprised. So that's how I ended up getting to go to West Point. This was 1984. I showed up on our day, July 2nd, 1984. I went from West Point from 84 to 88. My sophomore year, I had a couple people die in my family, so West Point let me go home for a semester. So that's how I ended up being a December grad. We started with over 1,300 people in our class, graduated around 981. Usually I was ranked, I think, 911 or 912. In every class at West Point, they go by class rank when you pick what branch you were. Well, all I wanted to do was be a Green Beret, but you couldn't try out for Special Forces until you were a first lieutenant promotable. So I figured, I said, well, I'll go to the infantry. I'll go there for a couple years, and then after I get to be a first lieutenant promotable, I'll go try out for Special Forces, go become a Green Beret. Well, just about every class at West Point had been prior ranked infantry. That means the last guy in the class got infantry. He didn't have a choice. So I figured, I'm like, I got a buffer of like 70 people. I'm not the last guy in the class. And our class of 88 was one of the first class in decades that did not get ranked infantry. So I ended up going to the field artillery, which I was not happy about at all. But it ended up being one of the best things that ever happened to me. I went out to Fort Sill, and that's where I met my wife down at, she was going to SMU playing basketball down in Dallas. And also, when I entered Fort Sill, I took the D-Lab. It's called the Defense Language Aptitude Battery Test. They test your aptitude for learning a foreign language, and they offered me 6 foreign languages. I took Greek because it allowed me to stay in Oklahoma longer, and then also it was a year in California at the Defense Language Institute, and then only a year overseas. So I did that. I finished the field artillery course. This was 1989, the basic course. I went to Ranger School. I broke my foot first Ranger School, same spot that I broke my foot second jump airborne school when I went as a cadet. I was dropped medically. You couldn't go back to Ranger School if you're dropped medically for at least 6 months. So I was in a holding pattern for about 3 months. I went over, got a job at an artillery platoon called the Multi-Launch Rocket System. and so I could stay in Oklahoma to still go down and see my wife who was in Texas. My first platoon sergeant, Sergeant First Class Williams, had 17 and a half years in the military already. For me to have access to somebody, I'm fresh out of West Point, don't know it, just finished the basic course, and to have a man like that, as my platoon sergeant, I couldn't ask for anything more. I finished up my year there at Fort Sill. I went out to California for language school. We learned Greek 6 hours a day. We got a 5-minute break every hour. We got an hour break after the 4th hour. So we did that for a year to learn to speak Greek. I ended up going over to Greece, which was, now this was in 91. And that was right at the start of the first Desert War. And so what I did is I went over to I thought about it. I called my wife. She was still back in the States. I was in process in Italy called CTAF, which is Southern European Task Force, the head of that part of Europe. And I went to the head of personnel and I said to her, I said, "Hey, ma'am," she was a lieutenant colonel. I said, "I'm going to volunteer." I talked to Christy first. She said, "If you feel you have to, then you do." So I went and volunteered for the first Desert Storm, the war there, because I was a forward observer. I figured they'd need a lot of forward observers. I just got out of the basic course. And so I did. She says, "We'll report the next morning. We're starting processing you into the Middle East." So I did, reported to her the next morning, and she told me because I just got out of language school, the military just spent a year for me learning Greek, and also it was called a critical nuclear position, that I didn't have a choice. I was still going to Greece. So I ended up going to Greece, which was a fantastic assignment. We had about 150 Americans on a real small base. It was not like you were really in the regular army. It was pretty interesting. I had an 8-man special weapons team. My first, my team sergeant there was Staff Sergeant Danny Powell, just an incredible man. And I had, 6 other soldiers on the team and myself as a special weapons team leader. And what we did is we learned to assemble and disassemble tactical nuclear warheads to stop the Warsaw Pact, from coming over from Bulgaria. It was really an odd experience. Just because we had a lot of other duties there. We had 12 lieutenants, we had a captain, and we had a major who was a commander. We went through 3 commanders that year, and my last commander, Major Quintrell, was just a phenomenal man, and he taught me a lot about leadership. And I came up with 2 things that what I would do when I had real good commanders. As one, they had to have a genuine concern for my welfare, meaning that they cared about me, and that's not something you can fake. And the number 2 thing is he had skill sets I didn't possess, and he was willing to teach me. During that year, we also, like I said, we also had other duties. We had 150 soldiers on the post. At the main headquarters, they probably had 120 American soldiers, and that was it in the whole country. We had to be the pay officer. I was the mail officer, supply officer, and also the customs officer. All the other lieutenants with me also had additional duties. It was just really, it was an interesting experience, let me tell you. After having that, after being at Greece, they let me pick anywhere I wanted to go. I picked Fort Lewis, Washington. I went there. That was really the first time. Now this is coming into 92 through 93, and I was a forward observer there. And what a forward observer does is you would call in for fire for any type of aircraft or artillery. We worked for we had a artillery battalion. We also had an infantry battalion that we would support. So we were going to the field all the time. It was fantastic, but we'd only go to the field probably 30 days at a time. Either on base we'd be going to the field, or we'd go up to Yakima for 30 days. But we halfway through the year there, I went to 1st Special Forces Group. I knew I was going to be a Green Beret, and that's what I wanted to do. I talked my battalion commander into letting me go. I went over and interviewed at 1st Special Forces Group. They put me in the 3 shop, which is operations and training. And my first mentor there was a warrant officer. He was a former pilot in Vietnam, real big, strong man. His name was, he was the first CW4 ever in special operations, and his name was Ron Scheckler. And he was also the first CW5 ever in special operations. And that was my first mentor. And how he would train me at PT in the morning, because I got so, he worked me really hard, is I worked up to about a 95-pound rucksack on our things. And how he kept up with me when I got back from selections, he told me he would put a pillow in his rucksack. And yeah, just a phenomenal man. And for me to have access to somebody like that as my first mentor in Special Forces, I couldn't ask for anything more than that. So I went to, while I was at first group, my last 6 months at Fort Lewis, this is 92 to 93, I went to the Special Forces selection course, about 350 guys in my class. It's a 3-week course at Fort Bragg. The first week, they just smoke you with all types of physical drills. Second week, you're carrying a rucksack. You'll be walking 8, 12, or 10 hours a day, sometimes at night for hours, just doing land nav. And then the third week, they put you in team week, and you would have one event in the morning, which would be about anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, and then another event in the afternoon, anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. You had 2 officers per team. They're evaluating you the whole time. And what they did is halfway through halfway through the last week, because some of the teams lost so many people, they'd be down to 6 guys. We never lost a guy on our team. They had to reshuffle the teams. We had such a great team. We were Team 6. We referred to ourselves as SEAL Team 6. Everybody wanted to be on SEAL Team 6. And the second part, though, when we reshuffled, we went to Team 5. Everybody made it through that except for one guy quit before we even got out the gate. 120 guys made it through the selection course, and 107 were selected. Then after that, you go to the 6-month operator course. We had started out with 35 officers. We graduated, 26 made it through the course. And one of the interesting things about it is I had the opportunity to go to in my small group was the Prince of Saudi Arabia, went through the Special Forces course with me. His name was Sultan Al Faisal. He ended up running the all Saudi Naval Special Operations. He also went through the SEAL team course. He's just a phenomenal man, and also lived down from me at Bragg. We had an Australian SAS guy who went through with us, and they have 2 Canadians a year that they pick from the Canadian military, and one went through with me. His name was Wayne, and he also was in my small group. All the officers for Special Forces go through a course called SEER High Risk 3, where they teach you how to hunt, fish, trap. They teach you interrogation techniques, how to purify water, build shelters, everything like that. Your first week, they teach you all the survival stuff. Your second week, they teach you a lot of the interrogation techniques. And then the third week, they put you out in the Uwharrie National Forest. They don't give you any food. And I went out in the winter, and they teach you, hey, you can pull all these berries off. You can eat this and that. There are no leaves. There's no berries in the winter. And but they figure it takes you about 40 days to starve. At the very end of if they don't catch you by then, they have the 82nd Airborne Task to find you. What they're do is they're set it up where they catch you and put you in the prison camp. Then that's called the Research Training Lab, and it's actually set up to be, looks like a real prison camp. They strip your clothes off. They give you a new name and a number. They make you take your laces out of your boots so you don't hang yourself in your cell. And they give you hospital pajamas. And on your left breast is stenciled a number, and that's your new name. And my new name was criminal number 106. I'll never forget it. And they give you 2 blankets. You sit in these cement cells that are probably, 4 by 4, and you have to sit Lotus style. You sit on one blanket, you put another blanket over your shoulders, and 24/7 they pipe through your cells. There's music or kids crying. And I remember one of the songs, Napalm Sticks to Kids. Napalm Sticks to Kids. And they would just play that over and over again. All the officers go through that portion of the course. and so do the Task Force 160 pilots that fly for special operations go through the course. And also there have different guys from the Ranger Battalion and different people throughout special operations that all go through the course. After that, what you do once you graduate, I graduated from the Q course. Now this is back in '93. You have to list what groups you'd be interested in going to. And there's 5 special forces groups in the world. There's the first group operates in the Far East. Remember, I was working at a 3 shop there. There's third group, which operates in Africa and the Caribbean. Fifth group, which operates in the Middle East. 7th group, they operate in Central and South America, and then 10th group operates in Europe. And what you would do is you would go to language school, learn some type of language in that part of your area of operations. I put down 3rd group as 4th. Anybody who put 3rd group, just because they were standing up new, is you ended up getting 3rd group, which is one of the best things that ever happened to me. Just because of the men I was associated with. I'm sure they have phenomenal men at the other groups, but I'm just a little partial to, my boys, the 3rd group. But anyway, so afterwards, they give you, I was assigned French language for 6 months. What happened is the invasion of Haiti was coming up, and this was September '94. So what I did is I still had a couple months of French language left, so I went to the commander and asked if I could test out just so I could be in on the invasion. And I did. I tested out early, went to 3rd group, got my issue of gear. My team that I was assigned to, I was already assigned to a 342, a Marops team, which is a water infiltration team. At every Special Forces group, there's 3 battalions. Each battalion has 3 companies, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie. Each company has 6 teams on. So you have 18 teams per battalion, 54 teams per group. My team had already went for the invasion. They were already in Guantanamo, so I had to wait till there was supposed to be a forced invasion of Haiti, and they ended up signing a peace treaty. Sam Nunn, Colin Powell, they signed the peace treaty with General Sabres, who kicked President Aristide out. So I met up with my team right after the invasion. They flew me into Port-au-Prince. They brought me up to Camp de Application, which was the Haitian heavy weapons company. That was also like the West Point of Haiti. And that's where we ended up doing, we first did patrols out of there. And then what our team did, just because we spoke French and we also had a couple guys that were fairly good at Creole, they started putting us with other teams just to put out fires across the country. And what they ended up doing was they pulled us back so we could all go to Haitian Creole, because they knew this was going to end up being multiple operations. The first operation was Operation Restore Democracy. That was the invasion we did. We were there September, October, November, and I think we came back sometime in December. We went to language school for a couple months. Coming through them, we ended up deploying back to Haiti. The second operation was Operation Uphold Democracy. We deployed back to Haiti. They had already had 2 A teams there that trained up the Haitian National Palace and Residence Guard. That was about 220 Haitians, maybe 20 Haitian officers, and then the commander, which was a major. 2 A teams trained them up. They brought our team in to go operational so we could pull the outer security. What President Aristide did is he had 3 rings of security for him. The first ring was all former American Special Operations guys. They worked. They were contract workers. Now, you got to remember, this is before Iraq, but people, now everybody knows who the contractors were because of Blackwater and, the other companies were way more prevalent in in Afghanistan and also Iraq wars. But back then, there was still pretty thriving contractors. It was just a lot more quiet. So it was a company called MDM. They had all 12 special operations guys, ex-special operations guys. The next ring of security were all Haitians. Were all Haitians that the State Department trained, and then the outer ring of security were all former Haitian soldiers that were vetted by the CIA out of Guantanamo, and they brought them in. That's what we did, is we ran the outer ring of security for President Aristide. He would either live at the residence or the palace. Usually at the palace, I kept 2 guys there 24/7, and whenever he made a movement, I'd pull the whole team and we'd make a movement with him. That op lasted, let me see, March, end of February, March. Now this is 95, April, May, June. Okay, March, April, May, June, and we deployed back in July. That was probably the most high-profile job for a team leader in the whole country at the time, because every time, when President Clinton came in, I was charged of security there. Every single general that came in, congressman, senator, or anything, came straight through the palace, and I was the one who got to brief him. Was really fortunate that Colonel Jones gave me that job. He was actually my favorite commander ever, and in special operations and also the regular army. So then when I got back, Colonel Jones asked me if I wanted to command another team. I said, so I commanded he let me pick the Halo team, and I also got to pick some of the guys that went with me. My XO from my first A team 342 became my XO on my second A team 344. I'm going to try to talk him into being my first interview. We're we're still all really close, and I'm going to try to see if he's interested in coming on here, and also whether it fits into his schedule. But one of these times I'm going to make sure I get him on here, hopefully for the second episode. But anyways, now, so I just took over 344, the Halo team. Halo stands for High Altitude Low Open. There was one Halo team, one actual primary Halo team per battalion. So that means 3 per group. So there's only 15 Halo teams in special forces, and I was fortunate enough to be able to command, especially as a second command. Almost nobody I know, team leader-wise, ever got 2 commands of A teams. So anyways, we headed back for the third op in Haiti. It was Operation Maintain Democracy. We left in September, October, November, December. What we ended up doing that third op is I deployed myself. We only had 6 guys on the team because we're a specialty team. We opted not to just pick people, fresh out of the Q course. We wanted to wait, and we were more comfortable going with less guys than a full A team with just brand new guys that were just fillers for the op. We ran a sector of about a couple 100,000 Haitians. Myself, my 618 guys, we had 2 interpreters that were assigned to us. We had a Lance Corporal from Canada, Lance Corporal Angus. He was a Marine interpreter, spoke French. And then we had a guy from North Africa. His name was Rambo. I'm not kidding you either. When he came to the U.S., they let him pick his name, and he picked Rambo. He was a phenomenal linguist, and also was a good mechanic. So we're happy to have 2 extra guys on the team. Ran a sector of 200,000 Haitians. We had 195 Haitian cops that worked for us that had been trained by contract companies, which were ex-special ops guys also. We also had 128 Hondurans in the sector. Every foreign contingent during the operation had a 4-man special forces team. So they had a 7-group team with them, had a team leader, team sergeant, commo sergeant, and a medic. One of the reasons why they had a Special Forces A team with them, one, so they could oversee what some of the foreign contingents were doing, but also so we could have a common commo within ours, through the whole country. And they just didn't have access to some of the communications equipment we had. It's just secure. They didn't have a clearance for some of the foreign countries. So that's how we ran the sector. And we did that. That was 95 all the way till January 96. I came back. Also, my senior commo, Woody Woodson. I'm going to try to have him on also as a guest. I'm still really good friends with him. He and I went back. We went to Halo School. The first week of Halo School is ground week, where you learn how to fly, and you're in a large tunnel. It looks like a grain silo. and they teach you how to pack your chute there, and also teach you how to fly. You have a huge, it's probably 10 foot in diameter, maybe a little bit bigger than that. Have fans below you and fans above you, and you have a rope, some type of like rope net is below you and above you, so you can fly over it, but you won't fly into the fan to learn. And they're just teaching you how to fly like that, rather than throwing you out of a plane and falling at 1,000 feet for every 6 seconds, and then trying to learn how to do flat and stable. And so we learned ground week, learned how to fly there. Next, we went out to Yuma, Arizona for 2 weeks. It was a joint service school, so we would have the Navy SEALs there. We had Marine Recon there. We had Air Force Pararescue there, and then we also had Special Forces, Green Berets, Special Forces like myself, but we'd have a couple guys from the Range Battalion there also. We went out there for 2 weeks. I think we did 2 hay-hos out there, which is high altitude, high open. You jump out at about 12,000 feet, and you'd immediately open your chute at about 11,000 feet, and you're flying at 10, 11,000 feet. And because the wind current's a lot higher up, a lot faster up there, you could fly. We were flying probably 18, 20K, something like that, across the desert. It was really an incredible experience. We had 2 hay-hos out there. We did 28 halo jumps. All type of training that you do is crawl, walk, run. You'd start out jumping during the day, and you'd build yourself up crawl, walk, run, where you'd be doing a night combat equipment O2 jump, because anytime you go above 12,000 feet, you have to be breathing oxygen. So what you do is be hooked into the console. You have a bailout bottle on your side, and the jump master get up there, about 2 minutes out, get you ready to roll, get everybody up. You'd have to unhook from the console, turn your bailout bottle on, go to the end of the berth. Tailgate was already down. Wait for the jump master to give you the go, and you're out the back, falling at 1,000 feet for every 6 seconds. After that, after Halo school, we headed we're always shooting. One of the things in special operations is when you're in the rear, it's not like you're always getting ready for the next op. You either, as soon as you got back that night from any op, the first thing you did is you cleaned your weapons, put them back in the arms room, get your A bag, B bag together, your rucksacks, just so you're ready to roll. And you'd wait, and then you'd start a training cycle. You'd either be jumping or you'd be shooting. We would go out to they'd have mock cities set up, and we'd go out there and just start practicing room clearing. And like that, that is super dangerous stuff. But you'd start out crawl, walk, run. And so that's what we were always doing. We during that time, prior to that, we got called we were supposed to go to Liberia and exfil the ambassador and everybody from the embassy. We were supposed to go into isolation to do that. That mission ended up getting, they shut it down for some reason at the last minute. So our next thing that we did, now you're going to remember this is the spring of '96, was, one of the key things I did forget to tell you, my third op in Haiti, the commanding general of Army Special Operations came down to see me. He's called the USASOC commander. His name was General Scott. I had met him while briefing him at the Palace second op, so that's how I got to know him. And he was coming out seeing all the different teams. My third op there, well, he flew into Honduran camp. We met him there, drove him out to our place. I gave him the tour around and everything like that. He saw my book, How to Write the Perfect Resume. And he said, "What are you doing, son?" I said, "Hey, sir, this is my second A team." I said, I don't know. I'm ready to move on after the second A team. I'm not sure what I want to do. And he goes, "How would you like to go to Delta?" And I said, "Hey, sir," I said, I don't know anything about it. And he goes, "Well, we got something for you." And so the next day, Colonel No flew out to see me, who was the commanding special operations officer in the country at the time. And he was a former squadron commander at Delta. So he sat me down and talked to me about going to Delta. And he said, and I said, "Hey, sir," I said, "what do I need to do?" I said, "Should I carry a rucksack, practice land nav?" And he goes, "Garth, we can teach a monkey how to read a compass." He said, "We just need men who can think on your feet." So So I ended up that op, came back. General Scott's aide saw me when I got back, third op in Haiti, before I went to Halo school. And he said, "Are you going to go to Delta? They only have selection twice a year. They have it once in the spring and once in the fall." And I told him, I said, "I want to try to stay with the Halo team as long as I can, and then I'll go to selection." So that's what I ended up doing. Went to Halo school. We had another big exercise coming up. It was called Fleet X. It was the largest joint combined exercise ever on the East Coast. Joint means inter-service. Combined means like foreign services that we're working with. We got to work with the British SAS, the 22nd SAS, and also the Gurkhas were brought in as like an Op 4. What we were supposed to be doing, we were down in Florida, coming out of the base out of there for 30 days. And what we were doing, they were simulating the invasion of America from Cuba. And so then what we did is we were going to have a night Halo op, night Halo jump, fly up into Fort Bragg, drop a couple other teams off along the ocean, and then we were supposed to pull strategic reconnaissance. There's four missions that Special Forces had back then, which was strategic reconnaissance, direct action, foreign internal defense, and UNW, which is unconventional warfare. Foreign internal defense is propping up a country. Unconventional warfare is taking it down. And this was going to be a strategic reconnaissance mission. So what we ended up doing for 30 days down there in Florida, we just shot every day, or we jumped. We did a wing exchange. The British SAS got to jump with us. They got to wear earn American jump wings. We jumped their gear, and we got British jump wings. We ended up doing we had 6 teams that were coming up with us, flying up along the coast. We jumped out of an MC-130. They dropped them off. They were jumping out all static line at about 1,200 foot. We went up to altitude over the ocean, went up to 18,500 foot, did a night Halo jump into Fort Bragg, rolled up, got in our strategic reconnaissance position there, did recon. They ended up RDFing us, finding us because our radio, when we were sending radio signals back. And also they had to look at the map. They knew that we were in some swamps. We ended up having to exfil there. Went back to Florida, ended the op there. That was the end of my 18 time. I went to become the Bravo Company XO until I would go to Delta Selection. This was July 96. I ended up going to Delta Selection October 96. There were, I think there was 102 of us that went to the course. It's a 3-week course up in West Virginia. It's an old World War II POW camp. The part of it the National Guard uses. The other portion is for Delta Selection. It's a 3-week selection course. All you're doing is carrying a rucksack, 65-pound rucksack in West Virginia, doing land nav every day. You'd be doing land nav during the day and at night. The first week, actually the first couple weeks, the first week you're with cadre and they're just trying to smoke you. The second week you're doing land nav again, and the third week you go out to the field. By the time we went out to the third week, we were down to about 50 guys. And the last week at Delta Selection, you're just doing land nav every day, and you're also doing it at night. And sometimes you walk 4 hours a day. Sometimes it could be 8 or 12. It depends. And we had 2 days left in the course. I missed a point by a couple minutes. They had two water towers were on a ridge line, and I just went to the wrong water tower and just burned up too much time for me. So I ended up, they asked me when I out-processed, we're down to about 20 guys in the course. 9 guys made it, from what I understand. 7, it was their second time that they went through selection. When I did my out briefing, the lieutenant colonel asked me to come back in the spring. So I was planning on going back to Delta Selection. This was October 96. I was planning on going back in the spring. My son was born that following January 4th. I did one other op. I went down to do a counter narcotics. They let me go to Dominican Republic for a couple weeks. And I just said, that's it. I just didn't want to be separated from my family anymore. So I put my paperwork in, got out 31 July 97. And that was the end of my military career. I did a lot of other things afterwards. I got asked to do a TV show called Combat Missions a few years. Well, when I got out, we still have enough time. We're still rolling.
We're still rolling, Coach. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was just saying. I mean, if we're going to put in 30 minutes,
I think we're plus 30. But
okay.
Hey, listen. There's still so much more to talk to you about. In fact, I don't know that we could get one show only with you. We probably get a couple shows in with you. We're going to sprinkle that out through time because you have so many interesting stories.
John, we haven't even gone to like the ops I did. I'm 7 for 7 recovering abducted kids. And that started in 2003. I did it with a CIA guy and a Marine Recon guy. It took us 8 days to track him down in Costa Rica. Well, you've seen the picture.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to catch some of these pictures along the way. Here we go.
Yeah, that's the picture, brother. But I figured, let's just throw that's 30 minutes for the first episode, right?
Absolutely. Listen, okay. Garth, we have a lot more to talk about. We can't wait to hear more of your stories. And of course, we know there's going to be great stories that you're going to tell us with other people. We're going to find some people that across the United States, North America, and the whole world that are going to tell us great stories. And again, it's Warrior Talk here. It is the Garth Estadt Veteran Show here on the John Mendola Show Network. We appreciate everybody joining us. There's going to be more to come in the coming weeks, but a great first show to just hear a little background about our guy here, Garth Estadt, is just an incredible person and a wonderful warrior. And Garth, I can't wait till the next episode. There's so much more to talk about, but I appreciate you taking the time out and giving us some warrior talk today. Thanks,
John. I appreciate you talking to me and coming up with the idea. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be doing this, John. Thank you.
All right. We'll continue. And again, we'll tell you all the information you need to join us with here. Warrior Talk, the Garth Estadt Veteran Show here on the John Mendola Show Network. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll talk to you again.
Thanks, John.